Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our tips and tricks series for Golf Blitz. Today we will be continuing through our order of the different tours, and that brings us to Tour 9, Trenches Tour. This is one of the first tours that really started to catch my attention with just how technical things can start to be. And I know that we've seen some technicality with different courses up until this point, but this one really plays a lot more into the unique segmentation that you can see in the different courses on these tours. So I hope that the breakdown that we go through today helps you navigate these areas a little bit better, as this is where things really start to kind of come into the individuality of each in particular course. So if you're enjoying these types of videos, make sure that you subscribe, as there's daily variety content coming to you every single day. And if you find today's video helpful and or interesting, make sure that you drop a like. So let's have a look at the trenches and see how this tour works. So the first little spot that we have up here is a classic snaking course, where you're just going to want to try and make your way across as quickly as possible, though you will need to watch out for the water hazard that's over here on the farthest right hand side. Now, if you have a power ball or other power up that allows you to hit a little bit further, then by all means you can feel free to expend those resources to make your way down the course a little bit faster than you otherwise would be able to. For example, this grenade ball is going to get me into this last little section instead of that sand trap, which can be helpful and harmful depending on what you're going for, and then it's just a nice little chip back that way. Again, the biggest thing with these courses is if you have access to a ball that will allow you to traverse farther, then that is by all means your best option. But other than that, that course is fairly straightforward. This next one does get a little bit interesting, and unless you have a really high power stat, you're not going to be able to go right for that downspout right off the start of the hole. So you'll want to take a shorter chip shot right up here to the edge of this sand trap to get a nice follow-up there. That should almost definitely leave you in this sand trap just because of how you glance off of those sandbags. And then after chipping onto this slight downward section over here, you can get a nicer follow-up onto the actual putting green to finish off that hole. So the biggest tip with that is, unless you are absolutely sure you can meet that downspout right off the top of the hole, just get as close as you can. Now with this hole, there are two different paths that are proposed. You can either go over here to the right, or you can go here to the left. I think that the left course is by far the better option. You'll just want to try and bounce off of the right hand side of this platform, so you can bounce off of the sandbags and come to a rest on this platform for a nice follow-up shot. If you then have access to something like the sticky ball, you'll just want to stick your shot as close down to the hole as you possibly can, and maybe even get lucky and just land the immediate shot right off the bat. So this hole is another one that gets a little bit interesting. Now the best option on this hole specifically is if you do have that super ball to just take a shot clear over to the other side of this course. If not, I recommend trying to sit on this platform, because that gives you a much better follow-up onto the actual putting green to finish off the hole. So you can get this in maybe 2 strokes, most likely 3, if you're playing that to the absolute best of your ability. Again, if you have the super ball, that gives you a much better chance to finish things off by taking a direct shot over towards the green at the end of the course. This is another interesting hole that can be a little bit technical. If you don't have access to any power-up moves, you're going to want to come over here and then up to the top, or if you don't have a high enough power stat. But again, something that you will want to remember with all of these power-ups is they do have their own power indicators that you can use, and that will allow you to get further than you can just hitting a standard shot. So if you can take advantage of that to get up onto this ledge on the left, it will save you an additional stroke when trying to make your way up that cliffside, if you will, up towards the putting green to actually finishing off the hole. This is a hole that's actually a lot of fun. So ideally, if you have a ball that you can use to get down into this last sand trap area, that is going to be by far your best option, because then you've got a nice short little follow-up down here onto the green. If not, I recommend going for these platforms that do have the sand, so chipping into this second one and then getting a follow-up down to the lowest one for that final chip down to the putting green. But if not, again, the best option is getting down to that last sand trap and then making your way up to the top. Now, this is fairly similar to a hole that we've already seen, where you'll want to try and stay on this particular platform, and sometimes that just doesn't pan out. Now, what I really should have done on this hole that I'll go ahead and demo with the alt account here is I should have used the super ball to just get right over to the green, since I had access to it. And you might roll down to one of these lower platforms, but at the end of the day, that's fine, because it does give you the opportunity to have a shorter follow-up. And even if you have to wait a little bit for your elixir to fill up to take that shot, if you do have the super ball, that is by far one of the better options on that hole in particular. Here's another hole that can be quite a lot of fun. If you don't have access to the sticky ball like we do here, I highly recommend taking the shot over to this platform so you can get an easier follow-up off of the higher sandbags right here in the center. You can go to the right, but it's not as effective as going to the left here because it gives you a nice little banking option. However, if you do have access to the sticky ball, you can just take one shot over here onto this wall, and then you can get a nice follow-up right down onto the green for a final shot there. And that's really going to help you in terms of getting through this faster than the traditional way of going down throughout the various platforms. Okay, now this hole can be a little bit of a challenge. So of course the intended trajectory is for you to make your way down these sloped platforms, but you can get a shot off here that allows you to bounce right down onto the green, bypassing the course in its entirety. And you've got to get just the right angle off of this top ledge, but it can indeed be done, and in the most ideal of circumstances, it will even net you an ace on the hole. So spend some time on a practice course working this one out to really make sure that you can nail it when it really comes down to it. Alternatively, the putty ball works really well when it comes to, or the sticky ball, I should say, works really well when it comes to getting that nice follow-up, because then you're not relying on the bounce RNG for that follow-up shot. Again, if you have access to the sticky ball for that hole. So like I said just a moment ago, if you want to kind of take some of the RNG out of that, you can just use the sticky ball to adhere to this portion of that platform and then get a nicer follow-up there. Again, it does take away the possibility of getting an ace on the hole, but that's not do or die in most circumstances. So sometimes you've just got to take the trade for the safer route. So there are a lot of these holes that follow the same kind of line of thought, where there's a couple of different platforms that you can bounce off of and hop to. And ideally, that's the best case scenario of getting up to the higher platform, making it towards the end. But again, on any of these holes, if you have access to that super ball, then you can make your way over to the end and potentially ace the hole. So if you see something that lays out like this, do a very quick scan, see if you have the super ball available. If you do, then absolutely make use of that. If not, then play as cautiously across the platforms as you can, as that's the advantageous route. And that is what an ace can look like on any of the holes that have this type of layout. You just gotta be fortunate enough to have the right bounce, and generally banking off of that back wall is the best route to go. So having played through this course a couple of different times, I think that I have highlighted every single hole that is available on this tour, or at least talked about the general concept of what you need to do. Is there are a couple of holes that, though they are different in layout, are very similar in concept. But what do you think? Do you think that there's anything that I missed, or any additional strategies that should be taken into consideration? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below if that is the case. If there is a mind-breaking strategy, then I would be more than happy to showcase that in the beginning of a future episode. But thanks so much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you've made it this far, make sure that you subscribe so you never miss a daily upload. And thanks again for hanging out with me. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.